Thank you, everyone, and welcome to Breckland Council meeting today. Before I start the agenda, you might have noticed we now have a photograph of King Charles III displayed here in the Anglia Room. The UK government is pleased to provide us with this official portrait of His Majesty King Charles III, marking the start of his new reign. There is a long tradition of displaying a portrait of the monarch in public buildings, signifying the importance at the heart of national life. The photograph of His Majesty was taken in the autumn of 2023 in Windsor Castle, photographed by Hugo Bernard, who also took the King and Queen's coronation photographs. His Majesty is shown in wearing a uniform of the Admiral of the Fleet, #1 tailcoat, and is wearing the Garter, collar and Sovereign's badge, Garter Star, Thistle Star and the Bath Sovereign's badge of Order of Merit, the Royal Victorian Orders, Royal Victorian Chain and the Grand Cross of Victorian Order, the GCVO sash, as well as the set of medals on his medal bar. The photograph of the Queen is now going to be displayed in pride of place along with all the past chairmen in the main stairwell of this building. Thank you for indulging me on that. I think it's a very nice gesture from the government to supply us with the portrait. Right, okay, Julie, item 1 on the agenda, please. A list of apologies. Oh, we'll do the roll call. Oh, yeah, that's back up the top of my other bit. Yeah. So we'll do the roll call then. Thank you. Thank you for that, Julie.
Thank you, Chairman.
Don't know what I'd do without you.
Councillor Anscombe. Councillor Ashby.
Present.
Councillor Askew.
Present.
Councillor Attewell. Councillor Bambridge.
Here.
Councillor Bate.
Here.
Councillor Annie Blackburn. Councillor David Blackburn. Councillor Borrett.
Present.
Councillor Bowes. Councillor Brindle. Councillor Marion Chapman-Allen.
Here.
Councillor Sam Chapman-Allen.
Present.
Councillor Clark.
Present.
Councillor Clausen. Councillor Cogman.
Here.
Councillor Cowan.
Here.
Councillor Crane.
Present.
Councillor Duffield.
Here.
Councillor Eagle.
Here.
Councillor Fraser.
Here.
Councillor Gilbert.
Here.
Councillor Harvey.
Here.
Councillor Hewitt. Councillor Jermy.
Here.
Councillor Kiddell.
Here.
Councillor Kiddle-Morris. Councillor Kybird.
Here.
Councillor Land.
Here.
Councillor McCambridge. Councillor Monument.
Present.
Councillor Morton.
Present.
Councillor Nunn. Councillor O'Callaghan. Councillor Oliver. Councillor Plummer.
Here.
Councillor Richmond.
Present.
Councillor Sherwood.
Present.
Councillor Suggett.
Present.
Councillor Samantha Taylor.
Here.
Councillor Sarah Taylor.
Here.
Councillor Taylor Taylor. Councillor Terry.
Here.
Councillor Thurban. Councillor Turner.
Here.
Councillor Webb.
Present.
Councillor Wickerson.
Here.
Councillor Wilkin.
Here.
And Councillor Wilkinson.
Here. Thank you, Julie. I will now go to item 1 of the agenda. Apologies, Julie. Any apologies, please?
Thank you, Chairman. We have 3 apologies from Councillor Annie Blackburn, Councillor Brindle, 4 actually, Councillor Clausen and Councillor Hewitt.
Any further, Helen?
Hello, yes, I have an apology from Councillor Oliver.
Item 2 on the agenda is the minutes from the last meeting held on the 25th of January 2024. and they're on pages 5 to 15 of the agenda pack. Has all members seen these meetings, and any questions on the minutes? And if not, can I sign them as a true record? Yes, thank you. Thank you. Item 3. Does any members have any declarations of interest to declare? No? Okay, thank you. Now, before I move on to item 4 of the agenda, I'll just read a statement out, and the following statements apply to both the budget report at agenda item 4 and the council tax report at agenda item 5. In accordance with local authorities' standing orders, England amended Regulation 2014, a recorded vote is now required at budget setting meetings. Members are reminded that if they are 2 months or more in arrears of council tax, they must disclose that fact and not vote on any item set the tax or any decision which may affect its calculation. Okay, there's nobody declaring their tax. Okay, thank you. So item 4 then. Item 4, the budget, medium-term financial plan and capital strategy. Could I ask Councillor Phil Cowan, Executive Member for Finance, Revenue and Benefits, to present the report and then propose and quote the recommendations which can be found on page 16 of the agenda pack.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues. This budget was presented in draft form to the Overview and Scrutiny Commission 3 weeks ago on the 1st of February. And following an informative debate, the Commission agreed to note the proposals ahead of our meeting today. The same draft proposals were tabled at Cabinet on the 12th of February, at which time it was agreed that the proposals for the budget, medium-term financial plan and capital strategy for the year 24-25 be presented to full Council as drafted. Thus, we have before us today proposals for the budget, medium-term financial plan and capital strategy for the year 2024 to 2025. At the various meetings when we discussed and debated the proposals before us, it was acknowledged that the preparation of a budget at the best of times can be a challenging prospect, but in the context of the external pressures being felt at international, national, regional and local levels of society, the preparation of a realistic budget is no mean feat. Having regard to these external pressures over which we have no control as a district council, we have once again, through shrewd and pragmatic fiscal management, prepared a balanced budget for the immediate and medium term. Moreover, this is a budget that ensures that we can provide not only the statutory services for which we are responsible, but these proposals also demonstrate that we can support our aims and aspirations contained within the corporate plan, many of which are often referred to as discretionary services, to, for example, support the vulnerable, provide stimulus to business, create the right environment to enable a thriving community, deliver imaginative programmes and policies to improve mental health and well-being, and to enable us to work smarter and deliver Breckland 2035. When I presented these proposals in their draft form to the Overview and Scrutiny Commission and the Cabinet, it was against a background where there was much speculation concerning the parlous state of local government finance. Many authorities had either issued or were preparing to issue a Section 114 notice, thereby requesting to increase council tax above the permitted maximum without the need for a local referendum. Members will also be aware that the government has provided a one-off additional settlement figure in the last month. In the final settlement, we received around £80,000 more funding than forecast from the provisional settlement. Advice is that ministers are keen that this funding is used in the year 24-25 and is not just posted to increase reserves. For us here in Breckland, we face additional cost pressures through areas such as changes in the gate fees for waste and changes to interest rates forecast, which offset the increase in the settlement funding, and there is no new funding available. The final settlement also came with a requirement for councils to produce a productivity plan by July 2024. The plan should set out how the local authorities will improve performance and reduce wasteful expenditure and are expected to cover 4 areas: transformation of services, removing barriers from government which prevents activity being undertaken, opportunities to take advantage of technology advances, and ways to reduce wasteful spend. Now, the eagle-eyed will have noted that unlike previous years' iterations, there is an additional appendix, Appendix I, in which our Section 151 officer gives the formal opinion of financial health of the council. And I am privileged to state unequivocally that this council, your council, Breckland Council, is in a sound financial position, as demonstrated by the proposals before us today. It is to the credit of everyone at all levels within Team Breckland and Anglia Revenue's partnership that I'm able to come before you today to propose a balanced budget in the short and medium term, details of which are set out as follows. Section 1 sets out the background against which the proposals before us should be viewed, identifies the funding streams at 1.4, discusses the retained business rate, or NNDR, at 1.5, considers the implications of the new homes bonus, 1.6, comments on the council tax limits imposed by Whitehall at 1.7, reiterates the efficiencies and savings programme set in train in 2023, that's 1.8, considers the implications of the second homes premium and long-term empty homes premium at 1.11, comments on reserves at 1.12, and proposes the capital programme and associated funding at 1.13, with a view to examining and debating the proposed option under 2 that provides options for approval. The appendices to this report are clearly identified in the papers before us today, ranging from Appendix A to Appendix I. They contain information and data that provides the background to the recommendations that are before us today. I commend this budget, medium-term financial plan and capital strategy to you. There are 9 recommendations before us today as follows. That the Breckland revenue estimates and parish special expenses for the year 24-25 and outline position through to 27-28 as set out in Appendix B and E are approved. That the capital estimates and associated funding for years 24-25 and outline position through to 2033-34 as set out in Appendix H are approved. That the fees and charges shown at Appendix D and D2 for adoption on the 1st of April 2024 are approved. That the council tax is set at £113.58 for a Band D property in 24-25, a £4.95 per annum increase on current levels. That the medium-term financial plan at Appendix A is approved. That the capital strategy at Appendix G is approved. That with effect from the 1st of April 2024, the long-term empty property premium for council tax is applied after 1 year. That with effect from the 1st of April 2025, the second homes council tax premium of 100% is applied. And finally, that the retail, hospitality and leisure RHL NNDR relief is approved in line with government guidelines and criteria. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Could I have you've heard the proposals, could I have a seconder for that proposal for this, please? Leader Sam Chapman, thank you. Are there any amendments for this to propose? Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just start by thanking Councillor Cowan for his presentation, also pay tribute to the hard work of the finance team. As Councillor Cowan has remarked, we are, unlike some authorities of whatever political stripe, are at the moment in a relatively fortunate position, which is to be commended. I've spent some time looking into all the appendices, and as you know, last year we made some suggestions which were quite considerable sums as amendments to the main budget. This year, we will be proposing two separate amendments which will affect appendices B and E, and I'll ask Teresa to put those up. And we'll then see that we've got a proposer and seconder for each. I'll hand over. And the first amendment on the House Support Fund will be Councillor Terry Land, seconded by David Blackburn. And after that, we have another one on the food waste reduction campaign, which is proposed by Councillor Hazel McCambridge and seconded by Kendra Cogman. In the introduction there, you'll see that they've been confirmed as affordable in the overall budget as Councillor Cowan has set out. It's also important to emphasise that these are intended to contribute, constructively enhance the corporate objectives of the council, as you'll see when the proposers and seconders go through them, and they do not actually eliminate any particular projects or programmes in any major way or even minor way at all. We feel that these amendments will supplement the new Inspiring Communities programme, for example, recently, and these are a very, very small number of changes, having weighed up regard to additional benefits to residents across Breckland. So we'll now hand over to the proposers and seconders of Amendment 1. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Harry. I'd like to propose Amendment number 1 regarding the Household Support Fund for 2024-2025. The recommendation is that the Breckland revenue estimates and parish specialist expenses for 2024 to 2025 and outline position through to 2027-2028 are approved as set out in Appendix B and E, adjusted for £87,333 vied into the Household Support Fund in 2024-2025, funded by £17,000 from the Early Intervention Fund, £52,000 from the Council Tax Support Fund, and £18,333 from the Residents' Magazine. The proposal is as on the screen, so I won't waste your time by reading that out. I'm sure you've already had a good look at that. My volunteer.
I can't actually see it.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can just read the whole statement on that screen and then on block.
Okay. I'll read this out then. Is it this one?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. In 2023-24, Breckland received £281,000 to support residents through the cost of living crisis, with the average support grant being £300 per household. The Household Support Fund is due to terminate at the end of March 2024, as the government will not be continuing to provide funding. Given the importance of this service, it is proposed to bring together the £17,000 remaining in the Early Intervention Fund and the £52,000 in the Council Tax Support Fund into a new Breckland Resident Support Fund of £69,000. This pot will be administered by the existing team handling Household Support Fund applications, with the council tax element moving away from Anglia Revenue's partnership. In addition to the £69,000, this will be increased by £18,333 by producing one less edition of the Transforming Breckland magazine in 2024-25, bringing together a total fund of £87,333 for 2024-25 that will be able to support residents with food and energy related costs and, importantly, council tax support. My volunteer work at Thetford Community Shop means I'm in constant contact with families that are struggling, whether it be with fuel bills, food, petrol or other items. Yesterday I went around the store with a woman who had just £4.40 in her purse, but 3 children to feed. I'm conscious of not wanting to facilitate a jigsaw identification, but for clarity, her problems stem from removing herself from an abusive relationship. We cobbled together a selection of goods to get them fed for over the next couple of days. And I should add here, she goes without food so they can eat. Fortunately, I was able to offer a household facilities grant, which will, with a bit of luck, tide her over the immediate problems and, more importantly, will allow her to start seriously budgeting in anything other than a day-by-day process. That woman is just one of so many individual stories, whether it be the fridge breaking down, an MOT bill for the car, or a period of unexpected illness. Residents can very quickly descend from what Theresa May referred to as the just about managing to being in real stress. At that point, darker forces come into play. The not managing are like catnip to loan sharks, drug gangs, and much worse. I'm sure I don't have to paint a picture for you. On that basis alone, the Household Support Fund has done a great job of helping the vulnerable, preventing crime, but more importantly, providing for a much more stable society for everybody. My second point relates to the cliff edge residents now face falling off. Word of mouth is still a very powerful medium, and residents know via informal networks they can come to me or others to get help. Anecdotally, it's noticeable to me how increasingly the cohorts seeking help come from what would have been considered middle-class backgrounds. It's said that when the tide goes out, you find out who's swimming naked, and I'd suggest that water level has never been lower. I have broad enough shoulders to cope with having to tell struggling parents I can't help them. But that's not the point. They can't bear that weight in all one hit. Communities, wider communities, will suffer. The reality of life across all areas of the community is that 2024 is already shaping up to be the worst year in living memory for families on the lowest incomes. Until 2 years ago, as much as 73% of a single person's universal credit was taken up with food and heating. Now the cost of food and heating alone would exceed 100% of their benefit, forcing claimants to cut back even on those essentials. It gives me no pleasure to point out things are even worse. The family element of child tax credit, £10.45 a week, is no longer paid to huge numbers of families just because their children were born after the 6th of April 2017. And the 2-child limit means a 3-child family now loses even more, £62 a week. Analysis indicates that by 2028, 55% of families with 3 children and 77% of 4-child families will be thrust into poverty. The capacity of charities to step in is also running low, as many donors who have given a little to people who have nothing have themselves nothing more to give. If families ever had any savings, those have now run dry. There is increasingly no such thing as the bank of mum and dad. I'll be quite honest with you, I'm quite angry yet another lifeline is being withdrawn. And as much as I use that emotion as fuel for everything I do in the political sphere, an equal and opposite force is also in play, that being compassion. I fully understand how not all of you might share my anger, but my hope is this is a compassionate council who do share my concern for the less fortunate in our district and will vote to support this amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I now ask really so we all get a clear picture, can you read out each amendment and second it and then vote on each amendment as it's read out, please?
They have the right to debate.
Unless you want to have a debate.
One amendment.
Right.
Just read that amendment out.
Just read the
Do you want me to?
yeah, Sarah, just
Sorry, would you mind just reading the actual amendment out, i.e. the new recommendation that you wish to put forward, which is on the screen with the red writing in it? And just for clarification, the red writing are the additional words. Or would you like me to do it?
Yeah, no. You've got
So the new recommendation number 1 is as follows, and as I've just said, the red wording are the additional words which are permitted within the Constitution. So the amendment reads that the Breckland revenue estimates and parish special expenses for 2024 to 2025 and outlined position through to 2027 to 2028, brackets, as set out in Appendix B and E, adjusted for £87,333 fired into the Household Support Fund in 2024 to 2025, funded by £17,000 from the Early Intervention Fund, £52,000 from the Council Tax Support Fund and £18,333 from the Residents Magazine, close brackets, are approved. You now need to second, or somebody needs to second it. Can I just clarify, in terms of a seconder, you can either speak now or you can speak at the end of the debate. It's up to you, but you need to... Okay, but obviously, can you please second first?
I will second it.
Right, thank you. You've heard the amendment and you've heard it seconded. Any debate on this? Any questions? Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I ask Councillor Cowan what difference that makes to our budget, or how the budget is set, or has he any thoughts on it? Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Cowan, if you'd like to reply to the amendments, please.
Can I ask our monitoring officer to explain the process, please, for members, because this is relatively new. Thank you.
Certainly. So the process is a proposer puts forward the amendment. It is seconded. The seconder to the amendment can either speak when they say they seconded it or at the end of the debate. Members debate it, and before they vote on it, the seconder, if they haven't spoken, will say what they wish to, and then you, Councillor Cowan, because it is your motion, have a right to reply, and obviously it is a reply to the points raised. So there isn't any provision for really questions and answers and back and forth. So I think you'll have to answer the questions at the end.
Hence my request.
Yep.
Thanks, me, Chairman. If that's...
Any other questions?
Thanks, Chairman, and thanks for the amendment to the motion. I think actually what you've drawn out today is the challenges people are facing within our community, but more importantly, the acknowledgement of what this council's done over the ensuing years and the work we've been able to do for the example of the Charles Burrell Centre with the food shop, that actually this council, having the flexibility through prudent financial management, is able to ensure that we're able to support everybody across the whole district and allowing them to access affordable goods for their families. I think what we've had presented today is an ideal situation, Councillor, and all of us would like to place further money to support those in need. The challenge for me is that that's a sticking plaster, and everything we do as a council and administration is ensure that we have longevity around our programmes and activities. And my fear for what you presented today is that we will reallocate funding for those who find themselves in need throughout a 12-month period for council tax hardship, and we will front load that challenge for those who need it today, and we won't be able to have that smoothing process. I'm sort of circumventing one of your motions for later on, and apologies, Chairman, that I'm going to bounce the individuals into this. I've been working immensely closely with the Minister of State at Department of Work and Pensions and Treasury to ensure that the Household Support Fund can continue. And I am pleased that we will most likely see in the Chancellor's spring statement that that will be continuing. And that will be a smoothing exercise over a longer period of time rather than the hard stop which was announced at the autumn statement. So as much as the amendment today acknowledges where we want to be, I think that Treasury will manage to overcome that challenge for us today. As you saw when we went through Cabinet previously in a couple of weeks, we spoke around the Inspiring Communities programme, where hopefully we're allocating a further 1.2 million to support those in need. Part of that programme and part of the challenge which Councillor Clark, Councillor Attewell and Councillor Jeremy presented to me was that actually there wasn't much detail and meat on the bones in what we were going to spend the pound, shilling and pence on. Part of that flexibility is to allow officers to spend that money where it's needed most. And part of that scheme allows officers to reallocate that money for schemes such as this, supporting not the household support fund in its entirety, because we as Breckland were doing that prior to that scheme in its carnation. So I won't be supporting the amendment today, Chairman, because we're already doing that activity. We're already allowing that flexibility of officers to support them who need it most. The council tax support fund is there for exactly what it needs to be to support everybody across the district over a 12-month period. And the work which Treasury will do, and I'm hopeful that in the spring statement we'll be announcing that. Stand fast, though, Chairman, that if that isn't forthcoming from Treasury, I will be bringing back to my Cabinet to make sure that through the 1.2 million Inspiring Communities programme, we're able to ensure that the officers have complete delegation and discretion to be able to support those who need it most through the Household Support Fund if it is finally withdrawn on the 1st of April of this year.
Thank you, Leader, and that was a very up-to-date latest information from government. Any other statements? Raise your hands, please. Councillor Attewell, then yes. Sarah Taylor and Councillor Stuart Terry.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Leader, for that statement. I look forward to seeing what happens in the budget. And be assured that if nothing happens in the budget, we know where you are, and you know that you can expect a phone call and an email saying, right, what's next. I think for me, the success of the Household Support Fund has been that it's enabled me as a ward member to be able to draw down external funds to try and match fund that to help residents. So if you're given £300, the officers here do a fantastic job working with that individual and that family to sort of really drill down to the support they need. But what that's done is once they've done all the checks and balances and they have agreed to give that family that £300 support fund grant, that's enabled me and given me the confidence to go out and get other funding through local charities. And indeed, my own parish council at Swanton Morley, we have a small hardship fund, and the trigger for that is if the Breckland fund, if Breckland agrees that this family is deserving and they need it, then my parish council will swing in behind. It is important. I will say I've done 5 of these in the last month for different families, and indeed, and it shocked me, I am actually supporting service families as well in my village. There is a real need for this, and I applaud the Labour amendment, because what they're trying to do is highlight the fact that when we get to the end of March, we do not know what the situation is going to be. But if you're giving me some surety that if we don't get the support from government, we're going to bring it back to this forum, or at least to Cabinet, to see what can be done through Councillor Ashby and the Inspiring Communities Fund, then at the moment I will take you at your word and I won't vote for the amendment, but be assured I will come back to you if it doesn't happen as you've outlined. Thank you.
Sorry, I thought I was waiting for my name. Thank you, Chair. As Councillor Cowan and the Leader have both noted, many in our communities are under considerable challenge at the moment. And I note in Appendix E that there are substantial unallocated funds in reserve, so even allowing for minimum balances. It's notable to me that the budget does not extend the Disabled Facilities Grant. It doesn't make provisions to extend or improve the Household Support Fund, as others have noted. And I also note that one other Norfolk council has just recently made provisions to extend the Household Support Fund in their own budget. We also don't offer substantial and tangible benefits to local residents who are continuing to struggle with the cost of living. Bearing in mind that council tax is increasing, subject to today, even while we are sitting on this quantity of money in reserves, is untenable to me. I'm not advocating for profligate spending, but I cannot support a budget which does so little with so much. I therefore support this amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Terry, you had a question.
Thank you, Chair. Over the last 6 months, I, along with other Thetford councillors, have applied for more household support grants than at any other time. This also includes an unprecedented amount of food bank and energy vouchers. The use of the community shop based at the Charles Borough Centre has seen membership increase day on day, week on week, month on month. I'm concerned about the coming months on Breckland's ability to meet the demand, especially as the household support fund may end. How on earth are some of our hard-pressed residents going to cope when they're already at rock bottom and have been struggling for so long? And without doubt, the last 3 months have been the worst ever months. A recent report by the Trussell Trust reports that more than 600,000 people are likely to need the support of a food bank during the months of January to March. According to their forecasts, that's a total of 1 million food parcels, or about 1 parcel every 8 seconds. More worryingly, food banks are saying people are turning to the sex trade and taking out dangerous loans due to the cost of living. Draconian changes to the work capability assessment threaten to push yet more people into hardship, and there are fears that the potential removal of the household support fund could have a devastating impact on some of our residents. With measures to force ill and disabled people into work, they're likely to drive more people into food banks than employment. What will Breckland do to support these hard-pressed residents? And I will be supporting the amendment. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, you've already spoken, Councillor Atterbull. So, Councillor Borrett.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's the job of the District Council to set this budget today, and it's a very serious business because basically by setting this budget, we're taking money away from our residents. That's their money, and we're saying to them that we're going to spend this money on your behalf, how we decide to spend it. So we're taking it from you. And I think at a time of intense challenge financially, we ought to just look at how responsible authorities are with the money that we take from residents. There is only one Labour authority in Norfolk, and that is Norwich City Council. Norwich City Council has a debt of £207.1 million compared to Breckland's debt of nothing. That debt of £207 million is the highest debt per person in Norfolk. It's actually 60% higher per person than the Norfolk County Council.
Is this relevant?
I'm sorry,
Is this relevant to the motion?
I am talking about the budget, Councillor Atterwell, and it is a budget discussion. I didn't interrupt you. You haven't asked the chairman to intervene and speak. It's extremely discourteous. I kept quiet when you were talking.
You should be talking about the amendment on the budget.
I am talking about the amendment. It's an amendment to the budget. In fact, we've got most of what's on there is about the budget. I hope this doesn't eat into my time, Mr. Chairman. So if you look at, so the debt is 60% higher than Norfolk County Council per person. So Breckland's council tax was last year £108 for a Band D property, and Norwich City Council's
relevant to the amendment.
Councillor, could I ask the solicitor just to make a comment,
Councillor
please?
Borrett, the discussion at the moment is on the actual amendment, not on the budget as a whole. And I think your comments are straying into the actual discussion around the actual budget and the actual main resolutions. So, yes, please. Thank you.
Right. Any other questions on the amendment? No. So I will go now to the seconder, Councillor Blackburn, for his comment, please.
Thank you.
In round numbers, this 90,000 that's been put forward could support at least an extra 300 people or families with an extra £300 each when they are most in need, and help them through some of the most difficult challenges they face, due in part to the policies of austerity, partly due to Liz Truss crashing the economy, increasing mortgage costs, increasing rents that are taking up a higher proportion of people's wages of hard-working families, pushing more families into poverty. Government policies have also exacerbated this by not increasing benefits in line with the real cost of living. Government...
Yes, can we have a comment on the amendment,
it
not national
is.
situation
Okay.
which Breckland cannot control?
Yes, this is relevant. Its own statistics state that 4.2 million children are living in poverty, which is a third of all children. Children are...
Sorry, Councillor Blackburn, the amendment is specific and relates to council tax, early intervention fund and so on and so forth. So your comments really should be on those items.
Right. So therefore, the £300 each per family will enable disabled and elderly people to heat their homes or eat proper meals. Bearing in mind the increasing cases of malnutrition, this will be most welcome. The £90,000 will be spent in local shops, in the local community, supporting the local economy, and surely that's an aim for all of us. The local shops will in turn spend that money again. It's a small step, but a very welcome one, and I support the amendment.
Right, Councillor Cowan, you have a right to reply.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, members. It's quite refreshing that we have a debate about matters. And as the leader said earlier, I welcome the opportunity to do this. I don't believe anybody in this chamber, and I really mean anybody in this chamber, disagrees with the sentiments that we've heard from both sides. We are living, as I've said in my proposal, in very difficult times, and we as a council are doing what we can to support everyone in Breckland, in our society, literally everyone. But in that support, there are many, many demands from different aspects of society. And as you heard in my original proposal, we're talking about people who are vulnerable, supporting business, supporting residents. So on that basis, I had a direct question from Councillor Plummer. The answer to the question is no, it doesn't affect the budget, the overall budget. The figures that the amendment refers to are already contained in the overall budget. So no, it doesn't change that at all. But what I would say is this, that we do already have, as you all know, because the figures are on the screen before you now, £17,000 left in the Early Intervention Fund, which is used specifically for that purpose, to support families in need. And we have been doing so for some time, and we will continue to do so as long as that money is available. We also have, in the council tax pot, as it says on the screen, £52,000 available. And we will continue to dispense that money to those in desperate need. What we can't do is, I believe, is be too specific, because we need to hear the individual demands from folk. Part of our problem, we're 500 square miles of a rural district, is ensuring that all our residents understand what opportunities are available to them. And some time ago, we actually sent an inquiry out to residents asking how they like to be communicated with by the council. And one of those was by the magazine, which is why the magazine is still there, and why I would resist taking away an issue of that magazine, because that magazine is our vehicle for communicating the opportunities that exist for residents in the district to access the funds that we as a council are able to give to them. I would also point out that we are a caring society here at Breckland. I mean, if you look back at some of the figures, we've actually contributed, unlike some authorities, significantly more funds to Citizens Advice Bureau, who are the first point of contact for many of our residents who find themselves in difficulties. So, for instance, we have, I think, if my memory is correct, £86,000 to the CAB for debt advice funding, for example, which goes straight to some of the points that opposition members have been making. I make no apology for that. We know people get into debt for various reasons, and because of that, we're able to support them in that way. Other points that have been raised relate to reserves. And I suppose when I took on this portfolio many years ago, I looked at the reserves and said, for heaven's sake, that's an awful lot of money sitting there in a pot. But actually, when I asked the officers just what that money was for, I got some very, very sound answers. So, for instance, when you look at the reserves that are there on Appendix E, yes, there's £2 million theoretically unallocated, but it says unallocated, and what that means is we haven't spent it yet. It doesn't mean it's just sitting there earning lots of interest for us and it's doing nothing for society in Breckland. That money is there for specific reasons. So, for instance, the large one, if you'll indulge me, Chairman, revenues and benefits. The revenues and benefits reserve is there because occasionally local authorities get hit left of field by an appeal made by a significant non-domestic ratepayer, and they are successful. And this has happened, not here in Breckland, but it has happened elsewhere in the county. And as a result, a significant sum of money has been deducted from the balance sheet. That reserve is there to cover that. And it's there year on year on year. And occasionally we don't need to spend it, thankfully, in which case we can reallocate it as and when we find there's a need. It's a large sum of money, I do agree, but it's there for a very specific purpose. Similarly, growth and investment. It's for investment in projects which generate financial and housing growth and a return to the council. It's there to stimulate the economy in Breckland. It's there to enable people to find better jobs. It's all about driving the economy forward, which will help people who at the moment are in desperate need. These are almost intangible benefits, I agree, but they are there to support the projects and the programmes that the corporate plan, which has been rolling for year upon year upon year, is designed to provide. So no, I cannot accept that we ought to just strip the cupboard bare of the reserves that are there for specific reasons for a short-term gain. These reserves are there to actually support us as we go forward. Beyond that, Chairman, I don't believe I have much more that I can add. I applaud, and I really mean this, I applaud the opposition for actually examining the budget, examining what we're trying to do, and actually thinking outside the box, because that's what you're there to do. And if we were in your position, we'd be doing the same thing. But I can sit here with confidence to say that actually what we're trying to do is exactly what you're asking us to do, which is to support those in Breckland who are vulnerable, who are struggling financially, who have other challenges and problems, whether it be mental health or whatever. It doesn't matter. We are here to support people. And to do that, this budget establishes that, the one that I proposed. So it is with regret I won't be supporting your amendment, but I don't believe in not supporting it. We're not actually doing what you're asking us to do. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. We're now going to have the solicitor read out the amendment so we're all clear of what you're going to vote on.
Thank you, Chair. So can I please just clarify that you are voting on the amendment to recommendation 1, which will read as follows, that the Breckland revenue estimates and parish special expenses for 2024-2025 and outlined position through to 2027-2028 as set out in Appendix B and E, adjusted for £87,333 fired into the Household Support Fund in 2024-2025, funded by £17,000 from the Early Intervention Fund, £52,000 from the Council Tax Support Fund and £18,333 from the Residents' Magazine, close brackets, are approved. We will have to do a recorded vote because this relates to the budget, so Julie will read out the list.
Thank you, Julie. Over to you, please, to do a recorded vote. yes. Could you say for, abstain or against? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Anscombe. Councillor Ashby. Councillor Askew. Councillor Atterwill. Councillor Bambridge. Councillor Bate. Councillor David Blackburn. Councillor Borrett. Councillor Bowes. Councillor Marion Chapman-Allen. Councillor Sam Chapman-Allen. Councillor Clark. Councillor Cogman. Councillor Cowan. Councillor Crane. Councillor Duffield. Councillor Eagle. Councillor Fraser. Councillor Gilbert. Councillor Harvey. Councillor Jeremy. Councillor Kiddell. Councillor Kiddle-Morris. Councillor Kybird. Councillor Land. Councillor McCambridge. Councillor Monument. Councillor Morton. Councillor Nunn. Councillor O'Callaghan. Councillor Plummer. Councillor Richmond. Councillor Sherwood. Councillor Suggett. Councillor Samantha Taylor. Councillor Sarah Taylor. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Terry. Councillor Turner. Councillor Webb. Councillor Wickerson. Councillor Wilkin. And Councillor Wilkinson.
Against. Right, thank you. The results of that vote is 11 for, 31 against and 1 abstention. So I declare that the amendment recommendations has been lost. Now, before I go back to the original proposal, there was a few.
Further amendments. There's another amendment.
Oh, you got another amendment, have you? Okay. Okay, Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. We have one further amendment, which I'm sure members will be pleased to read and support. Amendment number 2, which is proposed by Councillor Hazel McCambridge and seconded by Councillor Kendra Cogman. And Teresa just adjusting the wording as the First Amendment has been unsuccessful. You'll see the wording in there under 1 as before. So I'll now hand you over to Councillor McCambridge as proposer. Thank you.
Thank you. So this amendment is for a food waste reduction campaign in the financial year 2024 to 2025. And the recommendation is that the Breckland revenue estimates and parish special expenses for 24-25 and outline position through 27-28, open brackets, as set out in Appendix B and E, adjusted for the £25,000 released from the Inclusive Growth Reserve from the Food Waste Campaign 24-25, close brackets, are approved. This amendment seeks to establish support for a district-wide campaign to reduce food waste, both to help household budgets go further, helping to lessen the cost of living, and to contribute to net zero targets, which will additionally support the work of other agencies and partners working with Breckland. According to Food Savvy, households from across the UK waste 6.6 million tonnes of food annually, and this equates to 118,000 tonnes across Norfolk and Suffolk. We've discussed food waste in this council before, and while it may be true that if central government does legislate food waste collection, pots of funding may become available, this should not hold us back from taking actions to reduce food waste, reduce the region's carbon emissions, and help households with their bills. The aims of this campaign would be to reduce food waste ending up in waste bins, to build on existing householder awareness of food waste, and to financially support residents in saving money on energy and food. By using methods which have been tried and tested in other councils in the UK, this council can invest in a campaign to inform residents that food waste equals climate change using a variety of communication channels, including social media, workshops and displays, can inspire residents to be creative with leftovers, organise meal plans and use up every bit of food, and can signpost households to any appropriate grants that may be available to assist in purchasing appliances such as slow cookers, air fryers and white goods, along with support for cookery workshops which would help to reduce food waste, energy bills and have the added benefit of improved nutrition. This amendment would see £25,000 utilised from the Inclusive Growth Reserve and result in Breckland reducing food waste in advance of any government action on food waste collection services. Thank you.
Seconder for that amendment, please.
Councillor Cogman, would you like to speak now or at the end of the matter?
Okay, you've heard that second amendment. Any comments?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman.
Leader, please.
Lovely. Thanks, Councillor McCambridge. And I feel privileged that actually when we met that I was aware of some of your concerns and also where you see some of our future activity. I've been working hard with DEFRA around the new burdens funding coming forward, both on capital and revenue for food waste. Obviously, we're seeing that rolled out for businesses next year and then residential properties across the piece the following year after that. I love that Breckland is always the vanguard for most activities, but I think on this occasion it would be inappropriate for us to allocate £25,000 in this venture across the council when I'm trying to simultaneously request that further funding from government. Seems like a bit of an own goal that I can fund it through my own allocation of reserves and therefore I don't need government to give me new burdens funding for it. So I think that the amendment is laudable in that regard, but actually it sort of takes away my campaign and activity with Whitehall. Secondary to that, you'll know that through our grant scheme that we can work with many organisations across the district who are able to request that funding to do schemes such as you mentioned already. And I know with great successes, once again, applauded the Charles Burrell Centre in Thetford, where we've been able to do that food waste reduction scheme for those individuals and get them to come in and understand how they can better use all their items they purchase. Thirdly, from that, I think it's really important that we have a uniformity across the county of Norfolk. This will be a big change for everybody. We're seeing food waste continue across the county, and actually it would be inappropriate for the Breckland district to work in isolation around that. I know that Councillor Crane, who chairs the Norfolk Waste Partnership, this is on their agenda to work out how we can collectively reduce food waste across the whole county, not in pockets within certain districts. And the fourth part, as you said earlier, the flexibility within the sparring communities allows us to do that already. So if there are opportunities for us to work where government funding does fall down short when we get that final allocation within this financial year, we can use that money to stand up schemes across the district to support those who find themselves in need, but also reduce food waste. So on this occasion, I think it'd be inappropriate for us to allocate from the reserves to this 25,000 funding.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Kybird, you had a comment?
Thank you, Chairman. It does seem that as a result of the failure of the first amendment, we will have 4 issues of a magazine which can provide this campaign at no additional cost.
Councillor Sarah Taylor, comment?
Thank you, Chair. So in response to a question from Councillor Cogman earlier this year, Councillor Crane confirmed that the Council has a preference for campaigns to reduce food waste rather than to provide a specific food waste collection. However, despite my best efforts since then, I'm yet to find such a campaign promoted by Breckland Council. This amendment seeks to remedy the situation at a low cost and, in my belief, does not prejudice any further funding from central government or otherwise. I therefore support this amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Gilbert, comment, please.
Thank you, Chairman. As most of you will know, food waste is a hobby of mine. I don't waste it. But anything that can be done to reduce food waste, I'm 100% behind. And I've said it before, if I was forced to have a food waste bin, I'm in the fortunate position that I've got a garden and I compost. The only thing they'd find in it is boiled bones. But I want to support the idea of this 100%. But Sam said something about if we put this money in, we might not get the same amount of money from government. Can I ask Sam, is that correct? If that is correct, that we would possibly lose the funding from central government if we went down this path, then I would not support the amendment if we're going to basically be spending our money rather than somebody else's. But can I have your assurance that should we not get this funding from central government, that we will look at this again with a view to actually doing something like this? Thank you.
Yes, Councillor, you asked a question which we're not having questions and answers on that, just your statement.
Anyone else?
Yeah, so Councillor Attewell, you have a comment,
Yeah,
I should say.
It's in relation to the inspiring communities, because the leader has just said, I think for the second time this morning, there's the flexibility within the inspiring communities scheme to do this work should we require it. I would just say I believe that the Inspiring Communities Cabinet motion has been called into the Overview and Scrutiny Commission for further examination. So I'm sure Overview and Scrutiny members and support members such as myself very much look forward to drilling down to find out what that flexibility is when we get to that meeting. And also, just to remind the members of the Overview and Scrutiny, I did suggest at the last meeting that there is a task and finish group formed, which I think through the...
Councillor Attewell, you're meant
I'll
to be...
cut you off, Chairman. This wants to say something.
The comment should be on the amendment, not on...
Yes, I'll get
the task and finish group could look at this as part of the Inspiring Communities and take that on board, I'm sure, through the Overview and Scrutiny Commission, which is why I don't think we need this amendment at this time. If there is this flexibility, I look forward to the leader or somebody at that Overview and Scrutiny telling me where the money is in the Inspiring Communities budget to do this work, and that may all manifest itself at that meeting.
Okay, if there's no other councillor... Yeah, I've just got a...
Oh.
Sorry, Councillor Ashby, I had a blank then for a minute. I forgot your name.
It happens a lot to me. Just to confirm, Chair, that we do fund community fridges. We've got a number of initiatives across the district. Community fridges at Dereham, Swaffham, including Thetford as well, and we've also got food bus and food banks. So the council is doing a lot in terms of proactive measures.
No other comments, so I'll go to the second Councillor Cogman, please.
Great, thank you. So I'd like to speak in support of this proposal. It's great to hear people, I think we're on the same page in this room about supporting reduction of food waste. I think for a relatively small amount of money, it would show our commitment to this, and I think it could be
arguments for and the nuances that could be presented would show that, this wouldn't take away from getting funding from elsewhere. It would show our view of how important it is. So food waste is a huge issue. When we think of the energy, money and time required to farm and transport food for it to end up in the bin, it's just a shame. It creates a huge carbon footprint. And on that point as well, I think we need to link that with supporting mental health of young people. And surveys have shown that up to a third of 16 to 24-year-olds are actually scared when hearing about climate change. So I think Breckland could show that we're taking that really seriously and supporting all ages in our community. So according to Food Survey, the average household could save over £730 per year if they were to reduce their avoidable food waste. It's 8 meals a week, love food, hate waste comments that could be saved if we stop binning our food. So although I appreciate there are a lot of things going on, obviously this is kind of looking at what people could do on a day-to-day basis in their home to feel that they have some sort of control in kind of the spiralling climate issues. So it should not just be a matter of waiting for the council to be forced to invest in a food waste collection by central government. We need to seize the opportunity now to inform, inspire and reduce the bills of householders and reduce our region's carbon footprint, showing that Breckland really does care.
I'll just make a statement on that. If we're going to have a waste collection, then we're encouraging waste. And the point was educating the people not to have the waste. There was a programme 15 years ago, which Norfolk ALC spread right across the district, had people visiting town and parish councils to explain food waste and what to do with food waste. And obviously, that didn't work, that education. Obviously, they didn't come forward. So you're contradicting yourselves a little bit, but that's my point as a comment. So I'll go now to Councillor Cowan for his right to apply on that second amendment, please.
Thank you, Chairman. And once again, to opposition members, thank you for bringing this to the attention of Council. And again, I would say I don't think anyone in this chamber disagrees with the sentiments behind what you're proposing. I really don't. In fact, I find it bizarre that people even do waste food, frankly. I can't afford to waste it, and I'm damn sure most people in the district can't afford to waste it either. We need to understand how to manage food in a different way, I agree. And also, depends where I want to start, really. You've heard already that we do support initiatives to help people address how they budget. And when I talk about budget, I'm not talking about the budget that we're just talking about. It's about budgeting for their life, their lifestyle. We do that, and actually understanding how to purchase food, how to use food is all part of that budgeting process. And we do provide that support, as you've already heard. We do it through CAB, through others. We do it through the Burrell Centre, which I've been to myself and supported personally. We do it through everything that I think, if you look at a golden thread that runs through this council, we are desperately keen to ensure that every individual understands precisely what their contribution to society is in Breckland. And we will help and support people at whatever level in order to do that. But there are some, if I can do some myth busting, I don't know what's happened there. We'll do some myth busting. So, yes, you're right, Councillor Cambridge, it's a relatively small amount, £25,000. But just imagine that government then turned around and said, actually, we're going to give you 100 grand to support this. But because we've already actually punted £25,000 of our own money at it, it means that the new burdens funding wouldn't come to us because we don't need it. We're already dealing with it. Government, when it delivers initiatives, frequently delivers initiatives which come with strings attached. We all know that, and we have to work through that sort of maelstrom. A new burdens funding for this particular initiative will only be given to those who don't actually fund it themselves. So I agree, it's a small amount, but it could actually prejudice us getting another 5,000, another 6,000, 15,000, I don't know. But it will actually have a negative impact on us. And that will be, I think, a disappointment all round. In terms of climate change, we're doing what we can to support every initiative that we're able to do so in terms of climate change. Cookery training at Burrell Centre, for example. As you've heard about the community fridges, we're encouraging supermarkets not to dump all their surplus food, which is getting close to the best before date or the use by date, and donate it. All of these initiatives are initiatives that this council is supporting already. And I don't believe putting an extra £25,000 from one small pot into this initiative is actually going to achieve the aims that you have, laudable though they are, because I believe we can do more using the funding arrangements that we have in place already and by lobbying government in order to deliver us more funding to establish a regime and a cultural change, a shift in behaviour patterns, which is what's needed across the whole of Breckland, but more importantly across the whole of Norfolk. And we must remember, of course, that our waste collection service, which this will become embedded within, is not just Breckland. We have a tripartite council waste collection service, and therefore it's very important that when we do this, we educate across district boundaries, county-wide. So it'll not come as a surprise to you to hear I won't be supporting your motion, because I don't think we need to. I think we're doing everything possible that we can do with the funds that we have available and levering in additional funds where they're necessary in order to drive a much more important cultural and behavioural shift in the county. So thank you very much for your amendment, but on this occasion I won't be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go back to Sarah, our legal manager, please, to remind members of the second amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And again, we will hold a recorded vote, and the amendment is, as you can see on the screen, and for clarification again, the red wording are the additional wordings to the amendment. So the amendment as a whole reads that the Breckland revenue estimates and parish special expenses for 24-25 and outlined position through 27-28 brackets as set out in Appendix B and E, adjusted for £25,000, released from the Inclusive Growth Reserve for the Food Waste Campaign 2024-2025, close brackets, is approved.
Thank you. Julie, with the same again, members, please say for, against or abstain on this amendment. Over to you, Julie.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Anscombe? Councillor Ashby?
Against.
Councillor Askew?
Against.
Councillor Atterwill?
Against.
Councillor Bambridge?
Against.
Councillor Bate?
For.
Councillor David Blackburn? Councillor Borrett?
Against.
Councillor Bowes? Councillor Marion Chapman-Allen?
Against.
Councillor Sam Chapman-Allen?
Against.
Councillor Clark?
For.
Councillor Cogman? Councillor Cowan?
Against.
Councillor Crane?
Against.
Councillor Duffield? Councillor Eagle? Councillor Fraser? Councillor Gilbert? Councillor Harvey?
For.
Councillor Jermy?
For.
Councillor Kiddell? Councillor Kiddle-Morris? Councillor Kybird? Councillor Land?
For.
Councillor McCambridge? Councillor Monument? Councillor Morton? Councillor Nunn? Councillor O'Callaghan? Councillor Plummer? Councillor Richmond? Councillor Sherwood? Councillor Suggett? Councillor Samantha Taylor? Councillor Sarah Taylor? Councillor Taylor? Councillor Terry? Councillor Turner? Councillor Webb? Councillor Wickerson? Councillor Wilkin? And Councillor Wilkinson.
Against. Okay, thank you. Thank you, members. There was 11 votes for the second amendment, 32 against and no abstentions. So again, that second motion has been lost. Now, before I go back to the original proposal of the budget from Councillor Cowan, has any other members got any comments on that first proposal? Councillor Borrett, it's your chance to have a, or anybody. Sorry. Oh, well, I didn't. Yeah, I assume there wasn't any further amendments because the leader of the Labour group didn't put his hand up. You're okay, thank you. So before I go to the vote for the original proposal for the budget, any comments?
Yeah, you need to go to the leader of the opposition first.
Yeah. So okay, Councillor Clark, and then Councillor Terry, Jeremy. Councillor Clark, you said you put your hand up. Can I have your hands raised high, please, so I can see if you've got any more comments? There's no comments. Councillor Jeremy.
I think Harry's hand's hidden behind the TV screen, Chairman, so you're at a slight disadvantage. Yes, I did want to comment on the main budget, please. Firstly, a thanks to Phil Cowan as the Cabinet member and the finance team for the work that they've done. This has been to 2 Cabinet meetings. It's been to overview and scrutiny, as you said, and there was a very good debate there, I felt, that was had. The word unprecedented is used a lot in local government finance, but I think it's probably justified this year for the sort of challenges and uncertainties. It frustrates me greatly that national government continues to work, I feel, actively against local government with last-minute decision-making, lack of clarity. We're hearing today about conversations happening which actually has a really significant impact on our budget today, and we still don't even know where we stand at the end of February about the Household Support Fund ending at the end of March. That short-term approach helps nobody. The latest money the government's come up with, referred to in the report, is the latest. It's a classic example of last-minute decision-making, policy on the hoof. We've heard the word sticking plaster used today. That approach with this latest sum of money, the £80,000, it's an insult to sticking plasters, frankly. If you look at Appendix A, Note 3, in the next year alone, our additional spend on temporary accommodation is £750,000 more. What's £80,000 going to achieve? It's an absolute joke to suggest that that's in any way supporting this council or indeed other councils. And I appreciate you guys can't say it, which is why I'm going to say it. It is insulting, frankly. I'm not surprised we're getting a raw deal because the only person, it seems, that I've heard today who's fighting for local government or certainly fighting for Breckland is our leader. We've heard how Sam has been lobbying to speak to ministers, speak to anyone he can to get a better deal for our residents, and I commend him for that. Where are our MPs? Where are our representatives on the national stage lobbying for this council, for our residents? I've not heard them mentioned once today in this debate. We've got 2 MPs covering Breckland. One of them, it appears, is more interested in his own bank balance and his salary of £100,000 plus not being sufficient. And the other MP, South West Norfolk, trotting the national stage, speaking to anybody that will listen. Today she's in the United States talking to the Conservative Political Action Committee in the States. We're all here fighting for the most vulnerable in our district. Our MPs are completely missing in action. So whilst this is a balanced budget, I accept that. It's in no way sustainable. It's not sustainable at all in the current sort of trajectory of funding and demand increases. And the frustration is that we could be doing so much more if we had the proper funding formula. We could be doing more to support vulnerable residents. We could be doing more on food waste, more to address the priorities of our residents. But we are completely hindered by the government's approach to local government and our MPs letting us down.
Councillor Borrett, you didn't have it. We got you on the list next, but okay, right, take that off. Okay, Councillor Askew.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not usually one for making speeches, and I'll keep this very brief. I thought it was very clever of the opposition member there, Mr. Chairman, to find a platform to make a very, very clever parliamentary application speech. Well done.
Councillor Sarah Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. We've heard a few times today of a reluctance to amend the budget in case it should prejudice future funding. In my view, if there's one thing we've learned over recent years, we cannot rely on this national government to provide us with any certainty with respect to local government funding. So I am unconvinced by this approach. We've also heard repeatedly of a reliance on a fund which hasn't yet gone through scrutiny to plug some absolutely fundamental gaps. There's also been talk about needing to address issues within the most vulnerable of our society, people who are facing really substantial challenges. It's worth reflecting that that no longer means working class people, and actually a huge number of very middle class, middle income earners are facing such challenges as well. Given the failure, in my view, for this budget to address those fundamental issues, I cannot support this budget. Thank you.
Councillor Borrett.
Thank tax is our residents' money, and we are taking money out of their pockets and saying that we are going to spend it better than them. I think we should always be mindful about how serious it is when we're having this discussion. And I think it's important to look at what Breckland's track record is and the track record of other councils in Norfolk has been in that regard as we make the decision today. There is only one Labour authority in Norfolk, and that is Norwich City Council. And if you look at the decisions that Norwich City Council has made over the years, they have run up a debt of £207.1 million. That is the highest debt per person in Norfolk, which is even 60% higher per person than the county council's debt, which manages social care. Breckland's council tax for Band D was £108.63, compared with Norwich City Council's council tax Band D of £288.59. Even if you add on the average parish precept, because I do accept that the city council's not parished, you still end up with the city council costing 22% more on Band D than Breckland. So if you compare like with like, a lot of that is servicing the debt that Norwich City Council's run up compared to Breckland's nil debt. And if you think, well, okay, Norwich City Council are spending 22% more per head, then that's charging 22% more per head, then they must be spending more money than Breckland Council on their residents. But actually they're spending less. Breckland's total budget is 65.21 million as compared to Norwich City Council's 65.03 million pounds a year. So you're spending 22% more with the City Council to get exactly the same. Now, in times of hardship and challenge, I find it very difficult to be lectured by the side opposite that they are doing the best for people when they are taking more from the residents and not giving them more as well. And that is the reason that I was going to say I would be voting against both of the amendments before I was cut off, because actually the budget that's been produced by the administration is, I believe, sound, responsible, compassionate, and the very best, I believe, that we can do for the residents of Breckland. And we can make these decisions because we've consistently, year after year, made sensible decisions that have an eye on the future, but are based very firmly in the present. So I have no hesitation in supporting the budget, and I had no hesitation in voting against the amendments earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments? No. Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a comment to Councillor Jeremy. Be careful what you wish for. If you are going to stand as an MP, be careful wishing what you've said, because it's so easy to criticise the people in power, but it's much more difficult when you happen to be in that position.
Any other comments? Councillor Attawell.
Yes, just to say, Chairman, I will be supporting the budget. I do take on board what Councillor Jeremy has said about our MPs who represent Breckland being really absent from the battlefield. Local government has taken a pounding over the last decade and more. It is a mess. We do get piecemeal bits of funding come forward to us, which I think is totally unacceptable. That's no way to run a thing. And I'm pleased to hear the Norfolk County Councillor present saying that Breckland runs such a good budget and we're well managed. Could we ask the Breckland management team to manage Norfolk County Council, please? Because clearly they could do a far better job racking up the debt that they do.
Councillor Kybird.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Jeremy asked where our MP Liz Truss was. I can advise that on Saturday she was canvassing in East Harling along with our Police and Crime Commissioner. Thank you.
Councillor O'Callaghan.
The One Norfolk Council has decided to use the reserve to extend household support fund is South Norfolk, a Conservative-led council. The emphasis on Labour councils is therefore misplaced, and the ability to extend funding to support people is not party political. I am against this budget.
Councillor Sherwood.
Give me a chance, Mr. Chairman. I was having difficulty with the technology. I think they were trying to stop me speaking from the other side. I think it was probably a deliberate ploy, and I'm extremely disappointed in that behaviour. But what I would like to say is that we've talked a lot today about how things are hard for people and how we are struggling with budgets and funding and cost of living. Over the last few weeks I've been visiting my parish councils, and at each parish council I've spoken about the Breckland budget, how much we intended to increase our share of the council tax by, and I'm proud, and most of those councils were very supportive of the fact that a Band D property, and let's remember most people in Breckland are on A, B or C, but if you live in Breckland, we charge you less than £2.50 a week for all the services you receive. Now, if you're on a tight budget, your local district council taking the minimum it requires to provide the services that are needed, plus additional non-statutory services with our Inspiring Communities and our commitment to our residents, should be championed. I would find it extraordinary that anyone in this council, from whatever side, would vote against a budget that takes so little from the residents. Probably, if not, the lowest council tax, district council tax in the United Kingdom or England. We should be proud of what we're doing. Those new councillors who've been recently elected must understand that through Breckland's prudent management of their budget. We have no debt. We take the minimum we require from our residents, which means they have more money for their food and their other bills. So I will be supporting this budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'd just like to say, just to remind everyone as well, that the household support fund from government, they have paid out 848 million pounds to this, and you've heard possibly they're still going to be continuing this. And I always think that money is tight right across. We know that the national government, it's spread from COVID, when billions was borrowed to keep us all safe and pay for us to stay in our homes. And there could be other residents, other parts of the country, you know, the other residents, other parts of the country where they need support as well and probably not getting it. So the government has to weigh out all the measures of the monies, what's going. And I can say as well that benefit support the government did raise that by 10.1% also to help with the cost of living crisis. And can I say as well, the government are putting money and funding into the renegotiating dentist contracts, so we all can get back to a reasonable sort of dental care. And I can say that you're...
Chairman, can we move the recommendations?
I'm sorry, but I'm just making a comment which is not so different what we've already heard this morning, but I'll leave it there. Councillor Morton, just a quick comment before I go back to you.
Yep, just wanted to echo comments that we should be proud of the robustness of this budget. Councils up and down the country are deciding to increase council tax and cut frontline services. We're increasing council tax while still maintaining the lowest district council tax in Norfolk, but we're doing that whilst not cutting frontline services and protecting our most vulnerable residents. So I support this budget.
Thank you.
If there are no more questions, Chairman, may I move the motion?
Yes, yes, please.
Would you like me to read it out again? No, that's fine.
Just say that they're online.
Yeah. OK, Councillor, there are 9 recommendations on page 16 of the agenda pack, and if all members are happy, these recommendations I'd like to have voted en bloc, please. Agreed? We'll do the recorded vote.
Yeah.
Julie, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Anscombe. Councillor Ashby. Councillor Askew. Councillor Attewell. Councillor Bambridge. Councillor Bate. Councillor David Blackburn. Councillor Borrett. Councillor Bowes. Councillor Marion Chapman-Allen. Councillor Sam Chapman-Allen. Councillor Clark. Councillor Cogman. Councillor Cowan. Councillor Crane. Councillor Duffield. Councillor Eagle. Councillor Fraser. Councillor Gilbert. Councillor Harvey. Councillor Jermy. Councillor Cadell. Councillor Kittle-Morris. Councillor Kybird. Councillor Land. Councillor McCambridge. Councillor Monument. Councillor Morton. Councillor Nunn. Councillor O'Callaghan. Councillor Plummer. Councillor Richmond. Councillor Sherwood. Councillor Suggett? Councillor Samantha Taylor? Councillor Sarah Taylor? Councillor Taylor? Councillor Terry? Councillor Turner? Councillor Webb? Councillor Wickerson? Councillor Wilkin? And Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you. The votes are in for that, the budget proposals, and it is 33 for, 10 against, and no abstentions. So the recommendations have been approved. Right, I'll now move on to item 5 on the agenda. I invite Councillor Philip Cowan, again, Executive Member for Finance and Growth, to present the report and then propose and quote the recommendations which can be found on page 77 of the agenda pack. This is for your council tax setting for 24-25.
Thank you, Chairman. Once again, I have the floor to talk about a topic which I think is of interest to absolutely everyone in the district, not just in this room. Contained within the budget, medium-term financial plan and capital strategy for the year 24-25 that we've just debated under agenda item 4 are the proposals to increase the Breckland Band D council tax by £4.95 per annum. That gives a figure of £113.58 for the year 24-25. And in addition to that, the setting of the special expenses at paragraph 1.3. The resolutions are based on the Breckland budget figures plus amounts requested by other precepting authorities. You may have noticed there's a discrepancy between the figures for the special expenses if you compare the table on page 30 of the agenda with those on page 78. And for those who spotted this, please award yourselves a gold star. I've got 2 now. That's good for me, I hope. But I'm able to confirm the figures on page 78, which are the lower of the 2 groups of figures, are correct. Not only were these discussed earlier today, but the proposal was also contained within the papers taken to overview and scrutiny at the start of February, and similarly those that were taken to Cabinet on the 12th of February, 10 days ago. On both occasions, the proposals were noted without change. The council tax resolutions are identified under paragraphs 141 to 145 and the supporting appendices A to F. And as the billing authority, Breckland is required to set the council tax by March the 11th. And accordingly, I commend option 2.1 to you. And the recommendations, therefore, are 1, that the full council approves the special expenses 24-25 at paragraph 1.3, and that full council approves the formal council tax resolutions for 24-25 at paragraphs 1.41 to 1.45. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Could I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Sam Chapman-Allen. Any questions or comments? Councillor Gilbert.
Thank you, Chairman. Is it really a year since we said this before?
Oh, not about lighting.
Yeah. As you know, I can support the budget as a whole, but I've always been against these special expenses imposed on the residents of Watton for street lighting, which is used by people who come into the town who do not pay for it, and at the same time we are supporting things in the villages. So I'm sorry, but yet again I support the budget, but I cannot support the special expenses and therefore the setting of the council tax. Thank you. Same again next year.
Councillor Banbury.
Just to comment on that last comment, parishes and villages pay for their own electricity, their own lighting, and we see no reason why Watton shouldn't pay for theirs. And I promise I'll shut my eyes next time I pass through Watton at night.
Councillor Kybird.
Thank you, Chairman. As regards special expenses for Thetford, we have a strange situation now where the Town Council won't take responsibility for footway lighting in the urban extension. So we're going to have 5,000 houses with no street lights, but people will still have to pay for the ones that are in the rest of the town. Thank you.
Councillor Eagle.
Thank you. Just to reply about the Watton street lights, my villages, which I cover, Ashill, North Pickenham, Great Crescent, but they all pay for their own street lighting and they use Watton, and I do know that a lot of people from Watton drive through Ashill. So perhaps the councillor for Watton is encouraging all those people that live in Ashill and my villages to actually shop in other towns rather than Watton.
Councillor Attawar.
Just to pick up on what Councillor Kybird said about Thetford, I'm surprised by that because it's quite a simple thing to negotiate money from the developer through the Highway Section 278 agreement, and if Thetford Town Council would like some assistance with that, I have the formulas to help them with Hopkins Homes to do that.
No? Okay. Any more questions or comments? I'll go back to Councillor Cowan to move this.
Yeah, in that case,
please.
Chairman, thank you for that. And you've heard the resolutions already. I move the resolutions. Thank you.
Over to Julie for the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Anscombe. Councillor Ashby. Councillor Askew. Councillor Atterwill. Councillor Bambridge. Councillor Bate. Councillor David Blackburn. Against. Councillor Borrett. Councillor Bowes. Councillor Marion Chapman-Allen. Councillor Sam Chapman-Allen. Councillor Clark. Councillor Cogman. Councillor Cowan. Councillor Crane. Councillor Duffield. Councillor Eagle. Councillor Fraser. Councillor Gilbert. Councillor Harvey. Councillor Jeremy. Councillor Cadell. Councillor Kiddle-Morris. Councillor Kybird. Councillor Land. Councillor McCambridge. Councillor Monument. Councillor Morton. Councillor Nunn. Councillor O'Callaghan. Councillor Plummer. Councillor Richmond. 4. Councillor Sherwood. Councillor Suggett. Councillor Samantha Taylor. Councillor Sarah Taylor. Councillor Taylor Taylor. Councillor Terry. Councillor Turner. Councillor Webb. Councillor Wickerson. Councillor Wilkin. And Councillor Wilkinson.
Okay, members, thank you. The vote is recorded as for the council tax setting is 32 for the proposals, 11 against and no abstentions. So that is carried. Thank you.
Councillor Turner has got her hand up to ask a question of you.
Councillor Turner? Yes, yeah, it looks like we're going to go over the designated 2 hours with the rest of the agenda. So if anybody would like a 10-minute comfort break.
Everyone happy with that?
Everybody happy with that?
Agreed.
Okay. Could I bring you back into order, please, members, so we can resume the meeting? Julie, did you want to restart the recording? It's already done. Thank you very much. Right, okay, thank you, members. I will now move on to item 6 quickly, Chairman's announcements. We did have another volunteer hero presentation here in Elizabeth House with Councillor Webb, and she nominated quite a lot of volunteers which really work well and do a lot of work in East Dereham. And there's volunteers from the Litter Pickers, the Ukraine Centre, Caring Friends for Cancer, Friends of Dereham Memorial Hall, Dereham Community Champions and fundraisers, and Dereham Crafters, and the people who run the East Dereham Food Bank. They was all recognised for their volunteering work over this last few years. On a nice bright note, it's the 50th anniversary this year of Breckland Council, and on the 2nd of April, 6:30 here in Elizabeth House, we will be celebrating that fact of the forming of the council. And I think you've all had, members have had the invitation to attend, so it'd be great to see us all come together for a bit of a social event and forget all our woes, if you like. And while I'm just quickly as well, I'd like to mention our neighbouring council, South Norfolk. Their leader was honoured with the lordship, and he is now a member of the House of Lords. So on behalf of Breckland Council, I'd like to thank the leader of South Norfolk Council. Would you like? No? Okay. Item 7, I will now invite our leader, Councillor Sam Chapman-Allen, to make his announcements.
Thanks, Chairman. I'm mindful of members and officers' time, so I will share in written form what I was going to say to colleagues today. But just to confirm, I've had meeting with council officers, councillors, partners and ministers in the preceding 4 weeks since the last council meeting. I will continue to have some moving forward.
Thank you. Right. Questions under notice. Order number 6, none received. Item 9 on the agenda, questions without notice under order number 7. Questions should be directed to the leader, a relevant portfolio holder or a committee chairman. Please raise your hands high in the air, including the leaders of the opposition, please, so I can take your questions. Right, so
Councillor Clark, no.
Councillor Clark, no. Councillor Attewell, yes, please.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is to Councillor Suggett in her capacity as Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Planning. Sarah, this council is working diligently on its local plan review to determine how this district grows over the next 20 years. We as members need to engage with our communities and persuade them of the need and benefits of additional growth for our children's future and the economic benefits this brings. Our task is being made much harder by the appalling state of our roads and drainage systems managed in the main by Norfolk County Council. In my own village alone in the last week, we've recorded 122 road defects, 73 of which were potholes. The public perception, which I share, is that Norfolk County Council have all but given up carrying out any meaningful highway maintenance. There is now a reactive repair system which cannot cope with the demand placed upon it due to the chronic lack of investment and, in some respects, poor leadership. This is getting worse as time goes on. The situation in Swanton Morley is not unique, and I know many communities share the same frustration. With this in mind, how will you, in your capacity as a Cabinet Member for Planning, persuade communities to grow if they can clearly see the existing infrastructure is in such a state of poorly managed decline?
you, Councillor Atwell, for your question. And I think you're quite right. It's not just in Swanton Morley, it's across the district. I go through several villages on the way here every morning, every day when we come in, and it's not unique to any particular area, and it is it's not helped obviously at the moment by things such as the weather, but it still doesn't solve that problem. And the challenge around us persuading our residents and our communities to want to grow and to have some growth in their areas, this doesn't help. There's obviously also other issues such as health facilities, the school provisions, dentists, etc., and we could go on. We've been trying really hard as part of this local plan process to make sure that we understand what all of those concerns are and the challenges what all our local communities see. We've had the most amount of consultation held throughout any other local plan process in this current plan that we're looking to review, and there's been some really good stuff come from that from our communities to highlight what those challenges are. We are taking from that how we then better engage and try, some are easier than others, to try and get round the table some of the partners that we are going to need to work with in order to be able to make our plan work. And of course the other districts across the councillors across the county as well will have the same challenges that we do. But rest assured, people, our colleagues at county are people that we are looking to diligently work with and try and work closer with to try and help them with their problems, and then us with a fantastic local plan that we're going to produce. So thank you for raising that.
Thank you. Councillor Sarah Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. This is also a question for Councillor Suggett, please. It's possible that I'm the only person in the room who read with interest the consultation on the local validation list that's just been issued. I see that list is considerably shorter in terms of the documentation established in it than the current guide to validation of planning applications. And it fails to include fundamental considerations, not least transport, which is obviously a huge concern to most communities where planning applications are submitted. Aside from the NPPF obligations, what is the intent behind the list? So not the consultation, but the list, and why is there such a shortfall?
Thank you for the question. I don't know the answer to that in its entirety. The validation list is obviously there for us to be able to make sure that we've got the documents that we need in a timely manner for the rest of the team to be able to determine planning applications. I will find out a better answer for you and come back, and I'll share that with all members, and then it will help everybody in the room partake in that consultation so you're all better informed. So thank you for raising it.
You're happy with that response, Councillor? Thank you. Councillor Terry, question?
Thank you, Chair. It's a question for Councillor Helen Crane. Helen, residents continue to raise concerns about dog fouling, and it was a hot topic at my recent council surgery over the life I lead. I'm grateful to both Thetford Town Council and Breckland Council who are working in partnership to address this, and some new signs have recently been installed to make people aware of the potential risks from not cleaning up after their dogs. Statistics for fines for dog fouling incidents in Breckland are very low. Could the Cabinet member reassure me that there is a willingness at Breckland to take the issue seriously and issue fines that would serve as a deterrent to others?
Thank you very much for your question. As you know, we do an awful lot around antisocial behaviour and enforcement. There is absolutely a dedication regarding dog fouling and fining. And James Harding, as you know, works very hard as an officer at Breckland. We have the new signage, as you have said. We also have the new deployable mobile cameras. And although we cannot guarantee that everyone will have them at once, there will be a criteria base for these to be put in place. And hopefully we will catch the perpetrators and fine. Thank you.
Councillor Monument.
Thank you. My question is for Councillor Sarah Suggett, as Executive Member for Strategic and Operational Planning. I think it's your field. I have been hearing for years now queries not only from my own ward members, but from other Dereham members and even from people outside the town about why we have not managed to do anything about the Akash restaurant, which sits as a sore point, a scar on the northern side of our marketplace. I know things have been attempted. Can you give us an update, if not immediately, then in writing, as to what progress we've made? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. There is progress which has been made. Unfortunately, it is all behind the scenes. It's nothing as visible as what the building is, which is what reminds everybody all of the time. But the owners of the building have been written to, and they have got 10 days in which to respond to us. And in that letter, they have been asked to comply with the notice, what they have had set out, asking them to comply with the conditions which were set out, namely to be doing something with the building, preferably selling the sale of it. Unfortunately, they are legal processes which they are a statutory length of time which are given on those, and try as we might, we can't hurry those up, but we are pushing them along as quickly as we can. I'm hopeful that there will be more progress made before our next council meeting. So if there is, I will make sure that in between the meetings we keep members, but especially you Dereham members, informed so that you can help better inform your residents. So thank you for bringing it to the meeting again.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor, you have a question, please.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is for the leader. Sam, were you aware of the fantastic response from our communities team yesterday when a vulnerable couple were internally flooded with foul water in Attleborough in the New North Road area? Within almost moments of having the report received, we had a very positive response from one of our community enablers who quickly attended, supported throughout, and arranged for emergency accommodation for these people who did have challenges with accessibility and being wheelchair-bound. We've been continually supported since the October flooding by the communities team, and I know myself and other ward members that were on site throughout many of these instances are very grateful, and so are our residents. So I just wanted basically just confirmation on the, I don't know how to word this really, on how valuable our Inspiring Communities programme is to our local communities in their time of need. Thank you.
Lovely, thanks, Chairman. And Councillor Taylor, I wasn't aware of that specific incident, but I'm pleased that the community enablers and the welfare officers were able to come out and support your residents in their moment of need. I think that the work that those bodies of people have undertaken, both the community enablers and the welfare officers, have been immense. And regards to whether it's those who find themselves in financial hardship or food hardship, to those who are trying to grapple with understanding how to make relevant applications to the Department of Work and Pensions, or those who are sadly facing natural incidents such as fire or flooding. I'm pleased that this council has been able to continue that programme through our Inspiring Communities Mark II activity, that continuation for another 3 years to ensure that we're able to provide that much needed resource. And I know that you and the fellow councillors in Attleborough are working hard with the communities to understand the historic challenges there, but also provide that immediate response to everyone who needs it. Work of our Blue Light Services and Norfolk County Council as the lead flood authority. But I will make sure the Chief Executive passes on the thanks on behalf of you district members to those relevant officers for their timely and immediate response.
Thank you very much, Leader. Any other questions? Councillor Councillor Wickerson, and then Councillor Atwell. You've had
Councillor Borrett.
Yeah, you've had a question at the moment.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, Sarah, there's another one for you. At the moment, in Swaffham, Norfolk County Council are planning on building a 224 pupil SEN school in Swaffham, and the situation is that Breckland is only a consultee on that planning application, as is Swaffham Town Council. As it's such a major application, can I have some definitive answer as to why such an application doesn't ever get into Breckland Planning Committee, because I think input from the Planning Committee would be useful rather than being just treated as a consultee. Thank you.
Okay, you are quite right. We are treated as a consultee, and that and it doesn't get determined at our planning committees, and it doesn't come near our planning committees because it is a statutory responsibility of the county council to determine such applications. So we are doing our bit in responding to that, but we are not the determining body on that application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Borrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was surprised that the opposition members voted against the council tax, and I wonder if the leader would agree with me that they had every opportunity to set a different level of council tax if they didn't agree with the proposal from the cabinet member, and we had a vote specifically on that. But they voted against it, but failed to put forward any alternative vision. And I think that, would the leader agree with me, that was probably an abdication of their responsibility as opposition to provide their own supporters with an alternative proposal, other than just saying we don't like what's proposed, but we haven't got anything alternative to offer. Thank you.
Lovely, thanks, Chairman. And as Councillor Cowan, the Cabinet member, said in his closing remarks, that actually it's a really important process, either through the scrutiny part of where we are, the consultation, or indeed here we are at full council. I think I share this. Councillor Clark's got the special button. I think I share the same frustrations as yourself, Councillor Borrett and Councillor Cowan, that actually through that process, if there were members who were concerned around the increase of council tax, they had every opportunity either through the scrutiny function or indeed today to put an alternative forward. I know that the officers will work with any member of this council around amendments to the budget setting process, and I think it's disappointing that they just voted it down and didn't give an alternative so that we could understand where they were coming from through their financial position on ensuring that we deliver a balanced budget, delivering those much needed services and protecting our workforce to ensure we deliver the services for everyone across the district.
Thank you. Councillor Richmond.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. A question for Councillor Alison Webb, if I may. Please, can you tell Council how the new addition to the Breckland team, Bobby the phone bot, is getting on, please?
Thank you, Councillor Richmond. Yes, I'll be delighted to. We launched a couple of weeks ago an extension to our programme, which is Bobby on the website. The idea is that you can actually do it on the phone now. You can ask Bobby questions. I don't know if any of you have tried it, but it's working really well. In the 2 weeks that Bobby phone bot has been live, we've cut down the waiting times by a minute, which is really good. So a minute is really important when you're sitting waiting on the phone. The Bobby at the moment is answering things like, can I pay my tax, sorry, it's gone. Thank you. Can I pay my council tax? When is my bins? Things like that, you know, just the normal questions. But what we're trying to do is gather back evidence of what other questions people would like to have answered and then expand what Bobby does. The idea is not loss of jobs. I want to make that very, very clear. The idea is to make sure that our officers have time to spend on more deserving cases that need our help more, rather than trying to rush them through. The more time, you know, as I said, at the end of the day, some of these cases that come in are complicated. So overall, it's going very well, and thank you for the question, and I'm happy to answer any other questions at any time. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's nobody with other questions before I go back to the leaders of the opposition. No. Councillor Clark? No. Councillor Atwill?
Thank you, Chairman. My second question is for Councillor Cowan. Can you please provide us with an update on the progress of the Breckland Bridge project at Culkirk, where it was previously reported that the main contractor had ceased trading?
I'm afraid I can't, Chairman. I am, as everyone in this room knows, I'm a director of Breckland Bridge, and therefore I have a conflict of interest.
Thanks. Question default, I assume, reverts to me. I haven't got the detail at my fingertips, Councillor Attwell, but I'll provide a written statement to all members of this council following this meeting.
Is there any other questions? If not, I will close this session. Thank you very much. I'll move on to item 10 on the agenda, the Finance and Performance Projects Report. Can I ask Councillor Philip Cowan, Executive Member for Finance and Revenues Benefits, and Councillor Webb, Executive Member for Customer and Corporate Services, to present this report and then propose and quote the recommendations that can be found on page 95 of your agenda packs. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. There is a third component, which is projects. And as we heard earlier, Councillor Hewitt is not with us, so I'll be presenting that element of this report as well. So Q3 finance. We're here again. Every year we go through quarters to look at where we are with our finances set against our previous budget. So the Q3 finance report would normally identify a strengthening position for the council. It usually does as we go through the years, but as we've heard already, there are significant challenges that face not just us but other local authorities. And so whereas it does identify some positive variations, there are some negative variations as well. And the paper that we have before us went to Cabinet on the 12th of February. It was duly noted, and it will be going to overview and scrutiny, I think, Terry, on the 14th of March. Now, as members will be aware, the year has seen unprecedented turmoil in various aspects of council activities, and they're identified in section 2.2 of the report that we have before us today. But turning to the financial implications, section 3 identifies those for both revenue and capital and the Treasury position. On page 74, Appendix 1, or A, depending on which set of documents you're looking at, the revenue sets out the headline costs of service provision that shows to date the pressures noted have led to a deficit of £546,000 that is proposed to be met from a contribution from the General Fund. Details behind the deficit are clearly identified on Table 2, and when you look at the top of that, you'll see, as I mentioned earlier, the first two are about housing costs, which are outstripping anything we could have budgeted for last year, and by the same token, planning and building control fee income dropping as a result of pressures on the construction industry outside of Breckland's control. So they're identified on pages 75 to 76 in detail, and Table 3 shows our progress in achieving the efficiencies that we've set ourselves to date, and you'll see from that that we're doing well in that regard. Appendix A, Section 2 on page 78, the capital, examines the progress made in relation to spend on capital projects. And Section 3, the Treasury, contains information pertaining to that aspect of council activity. And Section 4 looks at the balance sheet management. At that point, I think, Chairman, I ought to pause before we get on to the recommendations and move on to pass on the baton on to Councillor Webb to deal with hair aspects. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so this report takes a look at the performance for Q3, which is October to December 2023. We are seeing pleasing data in Q3. The majority of our key performance indicators are at or near target. There have also been an improvement in metrics, which was previously high last quarter. For example, the number of bins missed for collection is now back to the expected level. The areas which were challenging and where our current focus is in two areas. One is the website accessibility score. This is being picked up through the website redesign projects, which members are already aware of. Our current score is the result of changes to accessibility legislation and the technical limitations of our current digital platform. The redesign project will remedy these issues in the short term. Members can take assurance that the Council meets 99.3% of critical accessibility standards for the website. The other area is the mandatory training completion. This indicator has been flagged as amber due to being below target. The ODMP team and the HR team has recognised that while every effort must be made to maximise the number of staff completing mandatory training, the current way of reporting this indicator does not work as it should. As a result, the 7% of staff who have not completed mandatory training include new starters and, in some cases, staff who have only just been assigned training. The teams are going to be will seek to rework this indicator for Q1 24-25 in order to give a better reflection of what an appropriate level of staff training completion should look like. Thank you very much, and I will hand back to Councillor Cowan.
Thank you, Alison. So members will forgive me for basically reading what I believe Councillor Hewitt would have tabled today, and I'm probably not going to be able to answer any detailed questions if you have any, and we'll be able to respond to those in writing should you wish. You'll see from the dashboard there are currently 11 high priority projects that are overseen by the Corporate Project Service, and these range from property related projects to internal service improvements. At the time of this report being written, all 11 projects are tracking to their original project plans. A summary of the projects being overseen by the Corporate Project Service are included within Appendix C of the report, and some of the key highlights to note are as follows. The leisure PFI benchmarking has now been completed successfully and has resulted in a cost savings to the Council in relation to the provision of leisure services. In specifics, the Attleborough Leisure Project, the detailed design work for the 3G football pitch is ongoing and procurement preparations are underway. And I can confirm to members that with my finance hat on, I have signed off £268,000 of Section 106 funding in the last week to support that particular project. And finally, solar panel installation at Dereham Leisure Centre. We've recently agreed to progress this project to delivery, and a main contractor is being sought by our leisure provider, that's Parkwood of course, to complete the installation of solar panels on the roof, which will make a significant impact on the Council's 2035 objectives by generating and using renewable energy. On that basis, Chairman, we have one recommendation before us, and that is this, that the Cabinet recommends to full Council, so it went to Cabinet are recommending to Council, that the final end-of-year outturn variance, which cannot be funded from the General Fund, is met from the Revenues and Benefits Reserve. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. You've heard that recommendation and proposal. Could I have a seconder for that proposal, please? Councillor Webb, thank you. Any questions? Although taking into account you heard the councillor said he might not be able to, as it's not his portfolio as such, might not be able to answer any questions, and I'm happy for members to contact Councillor Hewitt when he's available to answer any written questions, if that's okay. But we have got one. Sarah Taylor. Go.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a question with regards to the performance in Q3, which is on page 109 of the PDF. I noticed that with respect to the days taken to process council tax reduction scheme new claims and changes, if I'm reading this correctly, there's been a very substantial increase, a trend in increasing time taken. And while the target is 9, we're currently at 9.97. So I'm going to assume that we're only just barely in the green on the RAG score there. Can you talk us through the reasons for that upward uptick, please? And what, if anything, is being done to arrest the trend? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to hand to Councillor Cowan on this one because he knows more detail for me.
Thanks for the question. As you'll be aware, I sit on the Joint Committee for Anglia Revenues Partnership, and this has been discussed at length at the recent meeting. Anglia Revenues, as you'll be very well aware, doesn't just deal with revenue benefits for Breckland Council, but also for all the other partner councils, and they've all had the same problem. And the problem emanates from a glitch in the software that was used to work these particular problems through. I can assure you that following the last joint committee meeting we had, we've been advised that that particular glitch in the software has been addressed, and we're now backtracking where we should be and delivering exactly what we want to deliver in terms of performance. So it was a glitch, it wasn't of our making in that sense, and we're now on top of it again. Thank you.
No more? Oh, Councillor Atterbull.
Yeah, if I could just ask a question of Councillor Cowan, page 102 of the report regarding the significant variances. I think it was mentioned previously in the meeting, looking at item 1, housing benefit claims. We've got a significant increase in the cost of nightly paid temporary accommodation. Clearly, this isn't a sustainable position. We can't go on like this. So could you tell me specifically what the council's strategy is to bring those costs down and make sure that we house vulnerable people in suitable accommodation?
Thanks, Councillor Ashwell. You're quite right. It's an untenable position, and it is only moving in one direction. We're very aware of that. But as this is a finance report, what I would like to do with the chairman's consent is pass this to Claire, who is responsible for our housing team. And if we're unable to give you specific answers today, we will do so in writing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Atwell. Well, obviously, you'll be aware that we are looking at various ways to manage this and manage the housing, the demand on housing in the district, and particularly temporary accommodation. To get back to you with figures, with more figures, I can do that later. Thank you.
Yeah, so you would like... Oh, just come in then, yeah.
So I'm grateful to you, Councillor Bowes, for that answer, but I think you can send me some figures, but I want to know the specific projects, because the only way you're going to resolve this is for capital outlay. You're going to have to spend capital money to get the accommodation that we need. So that capital's either got to come from this council, and we can already see that there's stresses on the reserves, or it's got to come from another. So I'm quite keen to know what the strategy is. We must have a strategy knowing how much housing we think we're going to need projecting forward over the next number of years, and how we're going to achieve that. I appreciate you can't give me an answer on that here in this forum, but that's what I really want to get to the nuts and bolts of. We've got to put a plan in place, because ultimately it will help with these figures on here, and it will help the people who need the help.
Thank you, Councillor. Just to advise you that we are currently updating our housing strategy, reviewing and updating our housing strategy, and that's currently underway and in progress. And I'd hope to get back to you, very soon, or this council with that progress, and that will have that detail. Thank you.
The leader might have a up-to-date strategy on that.
Thanks, Chairman. And just to build on Councillor Bowes' comments, she's absolutely right. So we've just undertaken the housing allocation policy. You'll have seen that's gone through. So that now allows Councillor Bowes' team to review the whole of our housing waiting list. As you heard, going through on a case-by-case basis, they come up for renewal. Beyond that, we've just had, through governance and audit, the capital and expenditure policy updated to allow us to have those freedoms and flexibilities. You'll see in the report itself, it talks around the temporary accommodation investment. We've acquired those assets in both Dereham and Thetford to support those in temporary need, but you're absolutely right, they are quick, immediate, low-hanging fruit for us. And as Councillor Bow said, the long-term strategy for where we are is in the final iterations in the draft form for us to bring through the relevant committees and the Commission to understand what the Council's future position is going to be, twin tracking that along with the work which Councillor Suggett's doing across Norfolk to ensure we're able to accelerate those stalled sites through the nutrient neutrality challenges, but also work with developers, as we heard from the most recent update for the local plan working group, at how we can support those developers who have financial cash flow problems to ensure that they can build those much needed houses across the district as well.
Thank you. If there's no other questions, I will ask Councillor Cowan to remind you of the motion.
Thank you, Chairman.
And,
I'll do that with pleasure. There's one recommendation, it's on page 95, and that is that Cabinet recommends to full Council the final end of year out of turn variance which cannot be funded from the General Fund is met from the Revenues and Benefits Reserve. Move that, please, Chairman.
Thank you. Now with that recommendation to move, can I go to the vote, please? All in favour? Any against? None. Any abstentions? None. Thank you. So that proposal has been approved. Thank you. Item 11, Treasury Management Policy and Strategy for 2024-25. Could I go back to Councillor Cowan and appreciate his work and effort today, thank you, to present and report and then quote the recommendations.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, once again, I'm afraid you're stuck with me. Treasury management, what an interesting topic. Now, particularly, you will see from this report that this was presented to the Governance and Audit Committee on the 8th of February, at which it was debated. I have to say I took very little part in that discussion, as I'm not an accountant nor a financial whiz kid. I merely present the report. It's written by a very competent officer of ours, Matthew Fernandez-Graham, our accountancy manager. And therefore, if you do have any detailed questions coming out of this debate today, we will be able to provide you with written responses. But suffice, if I may, to say that our accountancy process is guided by SIPFA rules. We're not in control of those, and they're, frankly, for those of us like me, somewhat of a black art. And if you read through the various appendices, you will see that there are a number of paragraphs or lines throughout which are identified in red type. And it's those items in red type which are actually bringing our policies and strategies up to date with the requirements of the SIPFA guidelines. There's nothing mysterious about what's in this report, if I'm honest. It is what it is. It's something we have to do. And therefore, the recommendations that we have before us, and I think if I get the page right, they're on page 114, and there are 5 of them. I'll come to those in a moment. Are required to meet those requirements which are imposed on us as a district council. Chairman, if you wish, I will read those recommendations out at this stage, and then we can go to moving them if there's no further debate. I know she has. So there are 5 recommendations to full council today. Number 1, that the Treasury Management Strategy for year 24-25 at Appendix A is approved. Number 2, that the Minimum Revenue Provision, MRP, statement contained within Appendix A, which sets out the Council's policy on MRP, is approved. Number 3, that the prudential and local indicators and limits contained within Appendix A, tables 1 to 11, are approved. Number 4, that the investment strategy for the years 24-25, Appendix B, and the detailed criteria included in Appendix B1 is approved. And number 5, that the Treasury Management Policy at Appendix B2 is approved. So those are the recommendations, Chairman, and I believe we may have 1 or 2 questions.
Could I have a seconder for those recommendations, please? Councillor Webb. Questions, Councillor Borrett?
I was seconding the motion.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Borrett seconded that.
Councillor Monument.
Yeah. Councillor Monument.
Thank you. In general, I'm not speaking against what is proposed here. I just want to bring to the attention of the room the fact that the recommendations as listed on page 114 do not correspond exactly with the options recommendation on page 118. If you look closely, the last one on page, the first lot that's just been read out is the Treasury Management Policy, that's number 5. But when you look at the options on page 118, it says that the non-financial investment strategy at Appendix B3, not mentioned earlier, is approved and be appended to the capital strategy in future years. In order to manage to get that as item 5, what has happened is that number 2 of the original set, which says that the minimum revenue provision statement contained within Appendix A is approved, I think effectively that is part of Appendix A and so has been absorbed into the revised list. So you've got 1 that refers to the updated Treasury Management Strategy at Appendix A is approved. The updated number 2 is the old number 3. The updated number 3 is the old number 4. The updated number 4 is the number 5 we had to start with, so that there's room for the non-financial investment strategy at Appendix B3 to be listed, which is the one with all the red print on it. I'm pointing this out so that the last item, the non-financial investment strategy, doesn't get missed out when we vote, because we're voting on page 114, we haven't got it. I'll leave Mr. Cowan to decide whether I've made sense or not.
Thank you very much for pointing that out. The 5 that we have on page 114 are correct. So those are substantive recommendations which we need to repeat. What we perhaps need to do is add in the 5 on page 118 as item 6. If that suits Chairman, that's what I suggest we do.
We needed that quote then, those 6.
So on that basis, Chairman, if I may, I'll get my machine in order. There will be 6 recommendations, the 5 which I have already disclosed to members. And then number 6 will read that the non-financial investment strategy at Appendix B3, which is, when you look on there, is a lot of red type, is approved and be appended to the capital strategy in future years. Thank you.
I'm happy to second.
Thank you. Right, if there's no more questions, I will go to the vote. Councillor Latterwell.
Comment, Chairman. At previous council meeting, I had requested consideration of an ethical investment policy. That did go to governance and audit. I attended governance and audit, and I am pleased to see there is some wording in the text of page 135. I just wanted to comment to say I'm grateful for that. That is quite a broad brush approach, admittedly. I know the council's hands are somewhat tied because of the bill going through Parliament, but I think this is a good start. It gives me the opportunity to go back to governance and audit periodically to grill them on said investment. So thank you for that.
Councillor Barrett, question?
Just in the light of Councillor Atterwell's comments, there were no investments found to be in any category that were excluded by this. The policy, which had been passed by members on all sides for many years, reflected that. The proposed wording, which we're voting on here today, just rules out for the avoidance of doubt, something that had been in place for many years.
Thank you for that clarity. Okay, if there's no more questions, I'd like to move to the vote. You've heard all the recommendations. All in favour, please. Any against? Abstentions? None. Thank you. That recommendation has been approved. Item 12, the corporate plan for 24-28. I will ask our leader, Councillor Sam Chapman-Allen, to present a report. Thank you.
Lovely, Chairman. Thanks so much. And I could talk for hours around the corporate plan and how excited I am for this refresh from April 24 to 28. But I know that many people in this room were present at the Over and Scrutiny Commission, in which the Chairman permitted myself and the Chief Executive to come and present, along with Cabinet. I think I just want to draw out that this is a living, breathing document and will continuously change over the ensuing 4 years to make sure that we're reflecting on the priorities and opportunities, but also the challenges facing our residents and businesses as we move forward. There have been some changes within the document to reflect that, and actually I think we've bolstered some of that activity, and picking up particularly around Breckland 2035, where we removed that as a single strand, now place that into business as usual for all of our council activity on a day-to-day basis. We've managed to draw out some of those questions which were raised at the Commission and place greater emphasis on them within the document, and the text I think reflects a really strong vision for where this council wants to see its district over the next 4 years and beyond into the future, providing that much needed support for those who need it most, that wraparound care to ensure that they get the support they require, but also ensuring that we're creating that growth in economy through investment with the business support, but also future business and ECDEV within the district, making sure that everyone understands that Breckland is open for anybody who wants to come and work in partnership with us. Beyond that, the wider day-to-day services we deliver to a really good satisfactory level for all of our residents, day in, day out across the district. And I think the budget position earlier today allows us to continue to do what our residents value and our residents very much appreciate. So happy to take any questions on the corporate plan, Chairman.
Thank you, Leader. Any questions? No. Okay. You've heard that recommendation. I could have a seconder for that, please. Councillor Morton was first up with his hand. Okay. Thank you. You've heard that, so I'll go to the vote. All in favour? Against? None. One. Oh, none. He's got his arm on a string. That's all right. Abstentions? None. Thank you. So that recommendation has been approved. Thank you, members. Item 13, minutes for information only. Overview and scrutiny, January 18th and 1st of February, and Planning Committee 23rd of January. Any questions on those minutes? No? Okay, thank you. They'll just be noted. Item 14. Now, a motion has been received under Standing Order number 8. A motion has been received by Councillor Clark, which was supported by Councillor Atterwell. Could I ask Councillor Clark, please, to explain the reasoning behind his notice of motion swiftly as you can, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman and Councillors. I try not to detain you. I've only got a maximum of 5 minutes anyway, according to our procedures. You've already got the motion formally set out in the agenda paper in full, and the number of the motion is that the full council resolves to write to the Chancellor of the Exchequer calling for the continuation of the Household Support Fund at the spring budget. This will allow local authorities to make vital interventions which help support families and individuals whilst we remain in a cost of living crisis. And it asks the letter to be signed by the leader of the council and the leader of the Conservative group, the leader of the Labour group and the leader of the Independent group. We have heard already much today at the council how the Household Support Fund has helped much needed support to the most vulnerable in the community in the cost of living crisis. Breckland as a council already recognises the need to support our communities across a wide range of programmes, linking up with other partners in health, for example, and helping with lower cost food alternatives. We also give grants to many organisations such as the CAB, Food Bank and others to try to prevent people falling through the net. Since 2021, the county as a whole has received funding for £33.5 million for much needed support, a lifeline for people facing hardship, hunger, crisis and unexpected costs. That's around 620,000 awards since then of support. Councillors will, I'm sure, have seen the letter from the Norfolk Community Advice Network that represents 10 charities including Shelter, Age UK and Citizens Advice Bureaus have already written to the Chancellor in the same vein because they are really worried what will happen if the scheme comes to an end. They've mentioned arrears on council tax, energy and the increased burden on mental health. Now we do know, as the leader has mentioned, that the council here behind the scenes and through the LGA will have made similar representations, and what this motion is doing is showing our support publicly and I hope unanimously. I think by agreeing to this motion, this would actually greatly strengthen the leaders' negotiations. In Parliament, there has been cross-party support for the fund and acknowledgement of how this has given discretionary and targeted support. I hope Council will also agree today to support this motion in a similar bipartisan way and agree to write this public letter to the Chancellor. I move. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. A seconder for that proposal, please. Councillor Atwell, you have a couple of minutes if you'd like to speak, or at the end. Thank you. Yes, so questions, the leader has one, or a statement. Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman. And I sort of previously commented around this, around the amendment we had earlier in the budget setting process, and colleagues will be aware that as leader of the council I write letters and have meetings on numerous activities, and it isn't the custom that I share that. It's through the custom that you trust me to get on with a job which I'm required to do. I have met with Min Davies, the Minister from Department of Work and Pensions, and the Secretary of State, Michael Gove from Communities and Local Government around this. Obviously, people will be aware that the autumn statement happened on the 22nd of November. The spring statement is expected in 7 working days. I know that all of you think that Whitehall is an agile and adaptable organisation and will be able to respond at pace, but I can guarantee you within 7 working days that isn't possible. So please be reassured, I have made representation to both the Secretary of State and the Minister around this. I know that members across the floor made concerns around this back in the latter part of 2023, and I absolutely acknowledge the important vital safety net this provides, that welfare support and to allow individuals to stay in work or to enter work. But for me, the long-term position is to make sure that this is an easing process, which I'm quietly confident the government will respond to over these ensuing years to allow the Household Support Fund to continue. But for me as a council leader, I need to ensure that we're working to that prevention piece, and that is a more long-term sustainable position. As much as that 33 million is an important part of what we do, actually that prevention work through the Inspiring Communities and worker partners across the district and the county is just as important. So, Chairman, I won't be supporting the amendment today because I can't support something I've already done as much as I would like to, and I hope that colleagues will allow me to feedback the earliest opportunity any responses I receive. I will share with Council my letter of communication to the Secretary of State and the Minister in relation to the Household Support Fund, and as I said earlier, 7 working days is not a possible timeline for Her Majesty's Treasury, or sorry, His Majesty's Treasury, to respond to such communication from me and the group leaders.
Thank you, Leader. Any other questions, statements before I go back to the seconder, Councillor Atwell, for your comments, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I welcome the leader's comments there. Again, we seem to be doing an awful lot of taking what you're telling us at face value, Sam, and I appreciate that you're going to send us, hopefully to all members, copies of the correspondence that you have sent to the ministers. The idea behind this motion was to show cross-party support, because we may have our differences about how we fund these things, but I think we can all agree that we need to support the most vulnerable residents in our communities. And this doesn't need to be political. The idea was that with all the groupings in this council chamber could speak really with one voice in a very simple letter requesting that this household support fund continues. You're absolutely right that long term there needs to be a greater piece, because it's not sustainable again to keep putting this money forward. There needs to be better, and it needs to come from government down, I'm afraid. There needs to be better safety net and better support for these people. But in the interim, what we have is what we've got, and we need this to continue for a period of time to ensure that those residents get that support. I think that's a fairly innocuous letter, if I'm honest. I think it shows cross-party support, and I would hope that members could support that. And we send that off, and we're speaking with one voice. I appreciate you've already done that with the ministers, but I think it's something that we ought to send to Treasury and say, this is not political. We're all for this, and we need you, as have the charities, the charity sector, etc., have done the same thing. I think we need to speak with one voice as a council, so I support the motion.
Did the leader want to respond again? No, okay. No, you're not allowed to, is it? Okay, yeah, Councillor Clark, have you got any more comments?
No, just to add what Councillor Attleworth said there. Again, I know that other charities have written to the Treasury, but I think this is about making this an actually public demonstration, so I can only echo that. And obviously we hope that the efforts of the leader do bear fruit, and we look forward to that coming. But again, this is about us actually uniting as a council on this, as we do on many other things. And I'll leave it there. Thank you, Chairman, to the vote.
Thanks to Councillor Clark. So I will now move to the vote for that motion. You've heard the motion. All in favour of the motion? Against? Abstentions anywhere?
Sorry to interrupt. I lost my concentration. I voted the wrong way. I apologise.
Right, so...
I was against.
Take it again?
Which one? So it'll be against, yeah. 14, 22, yeah.
That will be amended, Councillor. We got the numbers, have we? I'm just waiting for the girls to do it officially.
No, it wasn't carried.
Sorry?
14 against, 22. 14 in favour, 22 against.
Right, okay. The vote was 14 in favour, 22 against. So the motion has failed. I'm moving on now to item agenda.
No, nobody requested it.
No, there wasn't a request for recorded vote, Councillor. And then there has to be a second and minimum 14 in favour of that, if we'd have been asked. Nominations for committees and other seats. Councillor Soggett?
None, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark? None, thank you. And Councillor Attleworth?
None, thank you.
None? Okay, thank you. Item 16, amendments to the Constitution. I'm not aware of any.
No, there are none.
So there is none, thank you. I haven't got anything I decide as urgent at this point. And So before I close the meeting, I would like to thank everyone who has taken the time to watch the meeting via YouTube and thank members for their patience for this particularly long and important committee meeting today. So with that, I thank you all.